I think the business is my way of having an impact on the world in the right sort of way. A B Corp is a marker for how we sort of measure where we sit to a certain degree. But the bigger our business is, the more of a voice we can have. I'm not an individual who will sit on a thing and motivate, thousands of people.
Yeah.
So how can I have an impact individually? And for me, that is through growing the right business in the right way with the right culture and inspiring the team to get on board with this vision of what we could achieve together. Not just for me, that's not the point. It's not about that I. Yeah. That's kind of why I think that's my motivation. That's the kind of why for me. That's a really important thing.
Welcome to episode 2 of Soup in the Loop. Today I'm joined by David George, CEO and founder of Bitmo. I've had the pleasure of watching Dave's inspirational journey from startup to scale up over the past several years. In my opinion, David is a leader with a global vision, using his passion for cycling to build a legacy, focused on having a positive impact on the world's cyclists along the way. Today, we explore the man behind the Bitmo brand. It was a real pleasure to have a friend in the studio, and I hope you find the conversation as interesting as I did.
Dave, welcome to the pod.
It's you.
So I'm so glad you're here. It's something we spoke about a few times. We've wanted to have this conversation. Selfishly, I know it's going to be a very easy conversation because we've known each other for a long time, and I'm deeply admire what you've achieved with your business. So I'm really looking forward to kind of reminiscing over certain things, but also catching up and seeing where you're going to go with the business, and hopefully find some truths which really reflect with the audience. Our listeners could be right at the start up. They could be looking for investment. They could be big business just looking to be more dynamic. They may just want to be more thoughtful around global issues, like I know you are. So to start with, I know there's an awful lot to discuss, but let's just give everyone a snapshot of Bikmo as they stand today, and then we'll rewind the clock a little bit.
Yeah, so Bikmo, we are a cycle insurance specialist. Our mission is to protect the world's riders and the places we ride. We are a team of 35 bike geeks, headquarters in Chester. We have a base in Innsbruck to cover the European markets. And day to day, we protect riders and put them back on bikes. That means we sell insurance policies that protect riders for the unexpected.
Good. I think that, there's so much to talk about there, isn't there? It's like that's the elevator pitch. What's the bit that you're proud of or, really kind of connect with on a day-to-day basis, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like when you set out to create a business, we had to go through this quite recently in a like a brand positioning sort of document that we wanted to put together to sort of pave the way for what we saw for the future. Yeah. And part of it was around like just wanted to make a dent in an industry that, namely cycling, that I love. I grew up sort of riding bikes in the Lake District. I'm from Cockermouth, where I spent most of my life was in Cockermouth in the Lake District. I grew up in that sector, and my friends as well were passionate about that sector. And you kind of see these I'm sure we'll go back in time at some point. But when choosing to start the business, deciding to start a sector like a business in a sector that you loved, it's kind of you're starting as a minnow, no one knows who you are, it's your thing, you put it on the line. And we're starting to get the business to a place where it's kind of recognised within the sector. And that's taken a long time. We've been through, going since the end of 2011, we pivoted in 2014. And it takes a long time to happen. But that's something I'm really proud of, that we're starting to get to that place where we're kind of recognised and people know the brand, people know the name. Yeah. And, just from what I've talked around, we're a team of 35 people now. That's going to be growing a lot in the next sort of 2-3 years.
So you're talking about looking at towards the 2025 in terms of the size and the growth of the business.
Yeah, so we've got this kind of current horizon. We're going in the not distant future. We're going to go through another sort of investment round. So our current horizon, the way we're looking up to is 2025. What can we achieve by then? Where can we get to? Yeah. And broadly speaking, it's kind of geographical. It still fits within our mission of protecting the world's riders. To do that, we need to, one, protect them, but two, the world's riders. That means we need to grow geographically, and provide a protection to more riders in more territories. So we're geared up to doing that. Like it was a hard step to go from UK to Europe. But we now have a licensed entity in based out of Munich in Germany, Bikmo GmbH. That means we can sell insurance and protect riders across Europe, and so that it's really exciting. The plans moving forward. But I guess stepping back to where we are now, I think I'm proud of getting the business to a place where we've got a level of stability. We are not profitable in all our territories. It takes a long time for that to happen, but we've got a great book of customers who love what the brand or the service we can provide. And I guess the other side of things is we've got a really great culture within the business, and that doesn't just come from me, but it's something I started. It's something I'm really passionate about. And people, I'm sure we might touch on it at some point in the future, is the hardest thing, like day to day. In a role as a business leader, as you know, like day to day, it's the most rewarding without a doubt when things are running, people are humming. Like we had a great day today in the office, finishing up the model, looking forward. But it's the most challenging as well. There's always something going on, most of which is completely out of your control. For various different reasons. It might be an issue with mental health. It might be illness. It might be someone's family member has passed away. It might be performance-related challenges, all this sort of stuff. There's a lot to sort of deal with. But out of that, when it works, when the culture's right, when things are working together, there's nothing better.
That's a dream. Yeah. And I think one of the things we do want to talk about later is the culture and the fact that you might have some tips around, because I know you like a shiny new idea to pull it from in terms of, how to get the culture, entwined into what everyone, everyday life in the company. But we'll go back to that. Just so people know, and it may be the same, but what's the weight between the tech business and the insurance business in terms of what you do?
Yeah, so interesting that it kind of came out of what we recently did in the kind of positioning. And ultimately, technology has always been a really important part of a business because it's what enables us to enable someone to get a quote, get themselves protected really quickly, manage their policy 24/7, enables the customer experience team to provide that awesome experience. So it's our layer for delivery. It's absolutely that. And the insurance business is insurance is the product. So our product is insurance. The only sector we work in is cycling. The only people we protect are cyclists. And then the layer for delivering that is technology. So I wouldn't. Neither can exist without the other. We're not just a technology. We're not just an insurance business. It's a combination of the two of those that enables us to do.
So the insurance side is where you pull on the values of understanding the cyclist. What they stand for, their behaviours, their passions. But being, passionate around building a platform that can enable you to grow and pivot and be dynamic as a business.
Like 100%. So, the technology platform that George and his team, George is our CTO, also based in Innsbruck, have built is enables us to transact insurance policies really low touch, as in there's not much interaction with the customer. That's kind of how it should be in the modern world. But being able to do that across multiple languages, currencies, territories, like super frictionless sort of onboarding. That's really that's what it's about. And then at the back end of that, there's the kind of, it's not really the boring stuff. It's stuff that you have to do as a business: the reporting, the data, the visualizations, all that stuff. All that sort of stuff comes out the back end, which is really important in running a business, albeit the customer doesn't necessarily see that. So it's an area that we're investing more into. We're going to double George's team in the not too distant future. I know George is, and I've always got my eye on kind of like what the best experiences are. We generally don't generally look at insurance as to where I think we should go as a business and what we should do. And you don't want to create something wacky. That's not the point. But it's always focused on what's going to make it easier, more satisfying, more enjoyable for the customer to manage, take out a manager. And it's still insurance at the end of the day. We touched on this a bit ago, and I still have this sort of odd thing. I never grew up in the, I didn't wake up in the night thinking insurance is my calling. This is what I want to do. This is me. And it's evolved in a particular way, which I'm sure again we'll probably touch on. But it's an odd thing. Working. I'm come from an engineer. I've got an engineering background and sort of evolved in this sort of way. but I think part of the issue that I still have challenges with Sega working in insurance is because of the normal perception of insurance, and that is slow. You're going to try and get out of paying my claim. You're going to archaic insurance, suits and boots and brokers, and that's not what we're about at all. But that, for me, that's a motivating thing, because it shows what the opportunity is to actually change the sector and do it better
and believe behind your mission.
100%. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So just before we wind the clock back, then, we've gone quite detailed quite quickly with some of the topics there. No, it's great. It's fascinating. Just so that the audience know at home, you've kind of gone from it. This is what you stand for. This is what you deliver. This is what you strive to do. From a user's perspective, the nuts and bolts. What is it? What can they see, and what can they have from Bitmo as a company?
Yeah. So the intention around the business is in protecting the rider. Insurance is a transfer of financial risk from one person to another. So when someone comes to our website, in general, 70% of people who buy our policy have recently bought a new bike.
Yep.
So the trigger for buying insurance normally is I've spent 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and it can be easy at that and more, especially when we're talking e-bikes that are growing rapidly in the UK as well as in Europe. The trigger for buying insurance is normally that they're worried about the bike getting nicked. Yep. And that's very natural. There's thieves in the world. A lot of people have had bikes stolen out, be it at the home or being away. But what we've tried to do with the product, with the package, is actually put together a really simple and easy to buy, a comprehensive and easy to buy insurance policy that covers you for a range of eventualities. We have as many people claim for accidental damage as we do for theft.
Okay.
So most people are worried about having the bike getting it, but they're more as likely to crash it.
Yeah.
Be that into a tree, into a cow, or into just. There's a lot of people that still drive their cars into underground car parks with a bike on the roof.
I've got a friend who's done exactly that.
Is that you?
No, it's not. No. Mine are neatly tucked in the van. It's all right.
Of course, yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of that sort of stuff happen.
Yeah.
Oh, there was even a chap had he damaged it when he was on a turbo trainer, obviously with Zwift and the rest of it. You're in your garage, your little pain cave. With a bike on a trainer, and if that falls off and it damages the bike, you're still covered for that. And what we don't try and do is try to exclude the type of cover that we provide. We've actively got a project internally that's pay more claims. Actually work out how we can pay more claims. To generally, when the claims are not back, it's because sometimes due to people not locking it sufficiently, not having a lock, and you do get fraud. And there's a few other things here and there, but we're actively out there to do it. But coming back to the sort of the policy. The intention was to provide something comprehensive. So we cover for you a lot of the things that you pay more for with other partners. They include the stuff that you wear. They include the stuff that's bolted to your bike. We include worldwide 365-day cover as travel. So wherever you go, however long you go for, you're covered. And then there's also with some of our packages some nice medical expenses. So if you fall off your bike and you smash your teeth, or you need a physio, you can claim for these sort of benefits through your policy. And again, it's really easy to transact. Really low monthly, relatively low monthly fees, 0% interest. Just making it easy. That's the kind of
Yeah. Okay, good, nice. So let's wind the clock back then.
Okay.
To 2011, I think you said was the original kind of birth of the company.
Well, it was incorporated at the end of 2011. Obviously, there'd been a bit of work going up to that, but that's my kind of date where it's Project 313 at the time was born.
Okay. So you were a contracting nuclear engineer, was it?
That is, that is correct. Yeah.
With from the lakes, passion for cycling. So how did you go from that position to, right, I'm going to risk it all. I'm going to throw my ideas in a ring and get on with it. Talk us through that period.
So I guess a lot of people who start businesses, generally they don't necessarily do it as a one-off. And I'd always had, I think in my head, not necessarily consciously at the time, but I wanted to do something by myself and put yourself out there and try and do something. So the first, after finishing university, 2004 or so, started a gardening business. Not really the sort of thing you do coming out of an engineering degree, but I didn't want to work in an office. And I got a tax rebate from a year in industry. So I bought a Bedford Rascal. Do you know what?
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah.
Beauty of a
Yeah.
car. Absolute,
Green one.
It was a green one.
Yeah, classic.
Absolute wagon. I bought some stuff and I put a little slip up in a post office. I lived in Sheffield at the time because that's where I studied, and there's lots of big houses around there. And I just ended up mowing lawns and doing the rest of it. And that was really satisfying to do that because you're doing stuff off your own back and you grew a business. I sold it for enough money to pay for myself to go away and travel and do a bit of stuff.
Nice.
So that was kind of first iteration. And then when I think it was around 2007, 8 or something like that, with a mate, Christian, on the Isle of Arran, beautiful place.
Yep.
And we were road riding and just having a chat around. I got into engineering after traveling, and as much as it's a great career, it's a fantastic sort of sector. It gives you an understanding of how the world is put together, how stuff's built, and how the world works. But it wasn't something I was passionate about. I always worked with people that were far more passionate about doing that. And particularly before starting the business, I worked at Rolls-Royce, and it's a great company, not the car one, the aero engine one, in their kind of nuclear new build sort of division. And you could, in some ways, it was great. You could see your career mapped out for 20 years ahead of you.
Yeah.
But successful career, continually sort of improving stuff, salary, whatever, blah blah. That scared the shit out of me because that's not necessarily what it was. Life's not about knowing what you're going to do in 25 years.
Okay.
And so stepping back from that, in 2007, 8, having on a road ride, just having a chat around, trying to build a business in a sector that we loved, i.e. cycling. So what would we do? How would we do it? Thinking about, you can set up a retailer. There's lots of them now in a nice little part of the lakes, and it's quite nice to have a nice little cafe. That's got some benefits, you're part of the local community and the rest of it. It has
a lifestyle company,
very much lifestyle company. Yeah. Think about becoming a distributor, distributing products, manufacturing something. With the engineering now, so we build something that people are going to use. Yeah. We had some ideas and designed a couple of bits sort of in the past, and it never really came to fruition.
Have you still got those ideas?
Well, no, some of it at the time, so Christian was a massive weight weenie.
Okay.
What you call them.
Of course.
Yeah. I want to say, and literally, he had some scales that he weighed everything on, and he even down to the fact that he had a bar grips that was 7 grams. Like most normal ones are probably 80 to 100 or something like that. These are 7, like frozen, and the first the products were largely weight based.
Okay.
And the first one was trying to think about it was actually disc rotors.
Okay.
Trying to make, because most disc rotors are steel because of similar sort of a mix of different sort of materials. But we had a design for one and tried to use like a cermet, like a coating on the rim brake. There was like a ceramic metallic coating to see if you could do that to sort of to see that. Anyway, it didn't come to anything at the time. It would have taken long, but we had there's a few ideas to do stuff, but. And various other components, it's not too hard to think of stuff. Now it's actually a lot easier to get stuff built, isn't it? If you think about 3D printing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can have an idea tomorrow. We can have it printed. We could break it by the afternoon. It's
easy. It's fab labs, even if you haven't got your own stuff, all that sort of stuff. It's a good place to be. But we weren't there at the time. So the last thing that we kind of thought of was thinking a bit out there at the time, and it was thinking about. At the time, Christian and I, to a certain extent, I wasn't quite as geeky, using a shit ton of different websites to try and find information to put together the lightest bike, doing it on a spreadsheet. But then you had to use loads of different places to find weights and the best pricing for stuff and the rest of it, and how to then fit it and the rest of it. So the idea was, how could we put something together that would bring all that together into sort of one platform? And that was the idea. And we didn't do anything with it at the time. Finished the ride, had some nice dinner, had a glass of whiskey. And then we didn't do anything with it at the time. But the kind of, I guess, coming on to that, the sort of, the trigger then for moving it forward was, unfortunately, Christian passed away in 2010, I think it was. Him and his brother were knocked down on the bikes over by a bus and on a winter ride together. It was a day when we should have been riding together in the south of the lakes, and the weather wasn't great, so they went for a ride, and that was kind of a fairly pivotal point in thinking,
of course,
sort of,
make it happen.
Screw it.
Yeah. Well, it's a tragic kind of incentive to make things happen, isn't it? But it's obviously in a good place now with what things going. One of the things you said was really interesting is the fact that being a career man scared the hell out of you, and life wasn't about knowing what you're going to do in 25 years. What makes you tick like that, do you think?
I don't know. stuff being too planned, I think, and I think I'm really lucky in some ways that I come from a background that is very stable, as in my parents are married, they're still together. We weren't wealthy really at all, like both sort of working parents, engineers, sort of teaching parents, but we've got a really stable sort of foundation there, and I don't want to overlook that, because that's a really important. I think
Absolutely.
Personally, I think that's a really important thing. And I don't know where it evolves from. My dad used to say, so low back, I was horizontal. That was the thing, and he got pissed off with the fact that having ability, but maybe not using it in a particular way that he expected, and more academically sort of stuff. But I don't know. I do think like Christian passing away was like. I might not be here tomorrow. I ride bikes every day. I ride on the road every day. Yeah. It's not even about riding bikes. More people get killed by cows in a given year than the cyclists sort of hitting them. There's so many ways you could not be here tomorrow. And that's something we're all
very aware of.
Familiar with. And I kind of think it's not as though we should be reckless. That's not the point.
No.
But I think once you start to accept the fact that you might not be here tomorrow, you can live life a little bit more freely without necessarily the encumbrance or the risk or the fear of what if stuff goes wrong. And you'll know it as well as I do, starting a business, when you first do it, you're laying yourself bare.
Yeah.
Like, this is not anyone else. No, you're not relying on anyone else to sort of do this. And it's not necessarily about it going wrong. Even the fact that you're putting a video out there, this is your creative self.
Yeah.
For me, this is, I have built this. This is a product that I have built.
Yeah.
And that's it's quite intimidating.
Yeah. Like even today, it's kind of, we almost hide behind the work that we do. We've never been a real kind of shouty, look at us, aren't we clever? This is all exciting, we're creatives. Me and Garen, obviously, we founded it together. We put ourselves out there and we risked it, but we were lucky to both have support at the time to kind of have the time to develop it and not be too stressed and all the rest of it. But we've always been fairly kind of organic and slow and build and just build this little network as we go. It's never been this big flashy thing. So doing this now, and over the last year or so, doing more outreach stuff as a business and as a face, it doesn't come naturally at all. But as you say, it's got, you've got to get on with it. I mean, you've got to
accept the fact this is you, and you've got a few grey hairs in the beard now, a few whiskers of distinction, haven't you? And just a couple. I do think that helps, that sort of level of experience where you can kind of look back and you look at your 25, 30-year-old self, or people around at the time and starting to do their own thing. And some people are naturally confident, aren't they? They're fine to go, this is me, this is what I am, this is what I am. Yeah. Quite often there is something sitting behind that, which is actually still a lot of self-doubt and sort of nervousness. But that was a scary part for me, just going out. And I did similar, like when I first launched the business, I did not write to everyone that I knew and said, this is live now, this is me, this is on, this is what I'm doing with my life. But I'm really proud now that, as I hope you are, with what you're creating, that it's something that's recognised and respected and is successful. It's not something to shy away from. Even if you don't shout about it all the time.
I guess that we'll come on to it, but that's the absolute key. That's the reason you keep going, you keep building. It's like, unless you're proud of it, yes, you got passion, but it's got to be like, this is me. I'm proud. Yeah, keep going. It's
doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you wouldn't rather be doing anything else.
No, it's like for a long time. It was easy when we were smaller. What we did was ingrained with who we were.
Yeah,
it was always like kind of corny to say, but our personal brand was, this is what we do on a daily basis. People knew us around town for what we did, and it was a lot easier to be proud of that and just actually, this is me. It's cool. Let's get on with it. Let's be creative.
Yes.
These days, it's different, isn't it? It's a bigger business. It's, as you say, people management and all the trappings that come with running an organisation is fun.
It's different, but it is fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there is that. I think I haven't had it for a long time where I've kind of thought, in a very long time actually, that I thought there's only been 2 times I had a wobble, I think, and that was before we pivoted to insurance.
Yep.
And that was when I was having to go back to our investors, and I'm really thankful I had some angel investors where I had to go back to them 2 or 3 times to put some more money to make payroll. I've never missed payroll. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah.
But there's been twice where I thought, I'm going to have to go back to engineering. It's not the worst job in the world. I don't really want to be doing it, but I could, if I needed to, I could go back to that. And I'm quite lucky to have that thing that I could have gone back to.
I think I seem to remember a conversation where it was almost on the edge of I might go back to it for 6 months.
Yeah.
And come back. You know, it's that sort of, you know, it happens all the time, doesn't it?
Well, it's on the edge.
Yeah.
And if you like, it depends on the type of business that you grow. The business that, first business we developed was this website, this comparison website.
Yeah.
And with that, you're really relying on, you need to get a lot of traffic to actually make any money.
Yeah.
That doesn't come overnight. You need to invest into doing that and what have you. We did have some successes over the time, but there was a lot of times where cash was up, positive weeks and then not positive weeks.
Yeah.
And having to go back cap in hand multiple times. We're very very lucky that we've got had some early angel investors that would support us and continually did, and they've done very well out of it now. You know,
very well.
And I don't resent that at all. They helped us out when we were in need, and then they come out there.
So just so everyone's aware, you know, before the insurance company came along, let's just go back to, you know, the original platform, what that was, you know, just the basics of it.
Yeah. So it was really building the original concept that I mentioned before when we were on the Isle of Arran and bringing that to life. And it was, I guess, in its most basic form, it was a price comparison engine. If you want to find a bike or a pedal or a tire, type in what you want to find, select the product, and we'll tell you where to buy it, either online for the best price or locally for the best price. We've always tied in local. Local is a really important part of the sort of cycling sector. We did that from day one. But then we added a bit more content to start with. So we pulled in reviews from Bike Radar and Evans. We were able to work with through their feeds. Yep. We pulled new YouTube videos, so you know how to fit that pedal or tire or chain set, whatever it is. And then on top of that, we added some intelligence. This is over a period of time.
Yeah,
it wasn't from day one.
Yep.
We added some intelligence where if you tell us what bike you've got, we'll tell you what bits fit it.
Yep.
So that used the engineering logic that I built up over time to say X equals Y, whatever. Put forward these products based on the fact that they fit this bike. Yep. So and the commercial model, how we made money, was affiliate marketing. Yep. So when you click through from our site to Wiggle, Chain Reaction, or site X, bikes at X, then we generated between 4 and 6% of the total basket value. So we didn't need to hold stock or send the product to do anything.
Yep.
It's more like a referral to the partner. That was the business.
And it was a simple but beautiful idea. Yeah. You know, having built bikes and tried to fix bikes, the amount of times you buy a part for the 4th time, it still doesn't fit and it's still wrong. It's like I'm not a nerd. I should be more kind of due diligent in terms of what I buy and stuff. But at the time, I remember thinking, but I've just bought this tire size or wheel that doesn't fit 4th time. When you came along, introduced the platform, it's like, it's perfect. It's like it should be everyone's homepage for cycling.
It shouldn't, and that's the whole point. And I guess there's 2 reasons. Obviously, that didn't. It didn't work in the end. I think there was a couple of reasons behind that. One was kind of the amount of data we had to process every day. 4 times a day, we processed data to figure out what was in stock at retailer sites and what wasn't in stock. Then we had to sort of aggregate. So there's 20 retailers who sell this one pedal. This was an example of it. Yeah. We have to make sure those feeds match to make sure they're recommending the same thing, and that wasn't very easy to do. They don't all have the same identity number or the same SKU. Yeah. And so technically it was quite hard. It required quite a lot of effort to do that. We had to have people manually.
I remember the intern summer.
It was a bad summer. Were you in the same office?
It was not quite then. It was we were working with the Riverside at the time, and we'd been introduced, and we said hello. And I remember coming along and knocking on the door one day. It's like must have been like 8 interns all just like banging away stuff, inputting. Yeah,
but it was just data input really stuff over time. We even had an ex British cycling rider, Hannah Mayo, who came in and did it. Obviously, decided that wasn't for her, which I don't blame.
Yeah, of course.
Don't blame her for it at all. But I just remember we had this sort of internal room that was next to the atrium of the Riverside Innovation Centre that were there. And it was a hot summer and it just got the sunlight. It was a really badly designed building. So it was a furnace in there. So we ended up buying this or renting this air conditioning unit. But it was so far away from the window, we couldn't pump out this incredibly hot air where we were getting cool air on the other side.
Just dump it in the corridor.
In the corridor. So it was like a sauna in the corridor. Got told.
So it's like a less glamorous kind of, you'd imagine the New York kind of factory building, wouldn't you? Trying to, the startup, but it was poorly fit out.
Furiously tapping away. But in the end, like the data management side of things didn't quite, didn't work. But then also like the economics of actually and it's probably relevant for a lot of other businesses. So if you think about acquiring customers,
Yes.
we had to acquire a lot of customers to get enough people to click through to a retailer for us then to generate just 4 to 6% of the total basket.
I remember
that they buy.
you went through a period towards the end where you proved the fact that if you get 1,000 people through the website, X amount spent, amount of money, and so it was just about scalability.
Yeah.
And throwing trucks of cash at it, basically, wasn't it?
And have enough confidence that over time it will work. But the challenge with that is you're kind of always competing against the retailers.
Yeah.
So the retailers make 30 to 40% margin, and we were making 4 to 6%, but only when they click through to a policy sale.
Yeah.
And if you think about how like Google Ads and Facebook Ads and these type of platforms work, well, you need to. We haven't got the margin to compete with the retailer, so we couldn't really play in pay per click.
Yep.
You then look towards SEO. We focused on some sites, but we had 30,000 product pages. Retrospectively, that was probably not a good move. But to then rank well, you have to write unique content for every single page. You need to have the right signals, the right things. And we didn't try any of the black hat or grey hat techniques, to try and boost ourselves.
Yeah.
And that was in the relative, not super early days, but that was 2011. That was fairly early days in terms of SEO. But so we managed to get some pages ranking better where we wrote them and we, but we could never compete. No. Especially against the price, retailers. So, I was, unfortunately, I think it was destined to fail. A lot of other companies have tried it since.
Do you still think, even today, if you kind of, I don't know, was it right to pivot? It was obviously right to pivot, but do you think it would have failed if you hadn't?
Yes, 100%. I don't know what else. There was another company called Bikmo that came up like a year or two after we had done that. We got in contact with them. Yeah, strong. And they tried to do like a not too dissimilar thing. And there's lots of like secondhand marketplaces that have come and gone. And we thought about that. And I still think it's probably a space for that. Like Bike Exchange is another example of that, where they kind of represented retailer stock. Yeah. They've gone through a torrid time listed on a sort of particular exchange. They've sort of gone down 95%. Yeah. It's a really tough one. I think if it was going to work, the other competitor, big competitor, was just Google Shopping. And obviously there's challenges around that.
Maybe like more of a niche kind of marketplace in terms of like the speciality around the bike and the bike build, the custom. Because we remember going to Bristol a couple of times and the custom builds, and maybe something like that would be a bit more, scale it down.
Yeah,
then it's too niche to make the money from, isn't it? It's so hard.
If you want to have a business that's going to scale, you kind of need to appeal to the mass market, and then you got a question: is it a hobby job where you make enough to pay for your travels or adventures, or do you? And the point of building the business wasn't to have a hobby job per se, was to have something. That was
so
scalable.
From the start, then you were quite determined to actually grow a large business, a very financially, rewarding business.
Yeah, I mean, like the end financial sort of like whatever that looks like was never really the motivator. I think it was probably like a.
But you're realistic to say this isn't just a lifestyle business. I've got because it could have sustained 4 of you in a room, and you could have taught bikes all day long and gone for a ride at lunchtime, and that's not a bad thing in a lot of people's eyes.
It's not at all. I don't like, everything is personal preference around these sort of things, but I think I always, from early on, it was just having something that could scale whilst you're asleep at night. This thing is still working and operating, and we're able to scale great, make it sort of efficient. But and to do that, you need to. I guess you need to think in a slightly slightly different way, but it was 100% that, like, how do we create a global business, a global brand? Like, how do we do this? And because create a dent in the sector that we love, bikes, it takes a long time. I had a session with the management team a while back where I was kind of looking at trying to get their heads in gear as to how long it's going to take to build Bikmo into this brand that really sits in the hearts and minds of riders. Some of the brands that we consider to be even innovative and fresh and progressive and doing the things, but also brands that we like are doing really nice stuff within our sector. Most of them are 30, 40, 50 years old. These are not like 1, 2, 3-year-old companies. These are not startups. And even in terms of like the Solomon, I'm not just thinking even with the bike space, the Solomons, the Burtons, the Specialized Trek, all these sort of ones that have been around from the late 70s, around from the birth of mountain biking.
Konas.
Yeah, they still feel fresh. They feel innovative. Although the massive global brands, they still feel like the brands that you want to kind of associate with and bikes you want to ride. And that's really encouraging and inspiring. Of course, the Patagonia news out today.
Yes, of course. Yeah, it's just mind blowing. I was sat reading it last night and I was like, every classic Patagonia, they've not every inch of that deal or, future proofing his legacy. like it even cost a huge amount of money personally for him to do it.
For
It's
the
not even
tax.
like, oh, this is a tax write-off. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. It's doing good for the planet.
Yeah.
He is committed 100%. It's incredible, isn't it?
It's a phenomenal, but I also think it's a very selfless one. I think he doesn't. I'm not sure if he even considered it as necessarily as his legacy, but as the legacy of the organizer.
Yeah.
But it's phenomenal. I mean, capitalism overall needs a massive shake-up, and that is the almost the kind of. It's an amazing end of the scale, and you kind of think about that. I'm sure you thought about your own business because you look at that and you're like, fuck, yeah. I mean, it sort of changes your mind. Thinking
But again, it's, as you say, it's, Patagonia's, what was it, in the 70s it started? So, it's not like us. We're not like, it's a 10-year-old business. It's going to take time to be established, to make some of these decisions. You've gone a lot earlier with the, B Corp. I would love to have done that over the last couple of years, but we're not in a position to kind of focus on it. And in the short term, that is what we're going to be doing next, sort of thing. So it's kind of big on our agenda, but I know you've gone through it. So I guess we skipped ahead a little bit, conversation, but, Patagonia, it's got to talk about B Corp, haven't we?
Well, it's there, and I guess it's part of the story. Yeah, we kind of, I think it comes back to kind of culture and like why you want your bit, why. When you're building a business, what do you want your business to be? And it's never just been about making money. That's not the point of it.
Yeah.
Personally, some people do that, and that's fine. You go ahead, make money, and do what you want to do after that. It's not an issue. But I think to create something more, something that has a dent, something that has kind of meaning, is really important. And I think underpinning that from really early on in the business is really important. Although, like I know you haven't necessarily been through a process of getting a badge. That's not the point. From day one, you have been very clear about what you're trying to achieve and the quality standards that you want to do it with, and that where your passion lies as well in adventure sport, in mountain biking, boating, surfing.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, even though a process hasn't been gone through now. And for me, the like B Corp and the 1% for the planet that we're a member of are ways to help us structure. As a young business, you don't have a huge amount of time, so you want to do things and structure a business in a way that is not as just good internally, but you also get maybe some external recognition for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And for me, B Corp was just a framework for how to work out how to do all that sort of stuff. It was introduced by my lovely wife, Alice, who you know well.
Indeed.
And who kind of comes from a sustainability background. And I've always had an issue with sustainability, even in the word that it's so ambiguous. It doesn't. For something to be sustainable, I think it's not specific enough in its own right as a word, but B Corp helps. It's not just about the environment. That's a really important thing.
Yep.
Environment's incredibly important. We're in a shit show with from a climate perspective, and that really needs addressing. But it also covers the kind of the workers and your social impact, and also company governance as well. And those are really important parts. And it's a pretty long process to go through. It can be anywhere up to 500 questions. But what it helps you do is put some sort of structure as to where you kind of sit, depending on who you are. The rest of the companies that were B Corps at the time were companies that I respected, and the ones that are now, the Guardian, Burton, Patagonia's,
Finistairs of the world,
all these sort of the companies that you respect. So they've obviously done it for a particular reason.
Yep.
So you almost get to benchmark where you are as a business. And our first score, because you get a score, you fill in all these, was I'd have to remember exactly what it was. It was in the 50s somewhere. Okay. You need to get 80 to pass.
Yep.
And if you're anything above 80, we ended up coming out with 84, 85 in our first certification. Okay. But starting with 50, you then understand where you need to improve the business to actually to raise your game. And that came across different areas in terms of staff benefits, maternity, paternity leave, includes from a company governance perspective in section 3.1 of our Articles of Association. Really boring governing documents of the business.
I switched off there a second. What was that?
It's the documents no one will ever look at, really, but it's the kind of governing documents of the business to set out how you want to run the business. And number 3.1 is I don't know it word by word, but it says you need to put environment, society, and kind of governance on the same level as profit when making business decisions. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with making a profit whatsoever. You need to do that, I think, to grow a business, to invest into the business, and capitalism is broadly about the accrual of capital and profit. I think in its own right, it's not too much of an issue.
But at what cost?
At what cost? And what? does it just lead to greed? And I think strong taxation, strong governance is needed for companies to do it well. So I don't think there's any particular challenge with that per se.
Yeah.
But section 3.1, I could pull it out at any sort of board meeting when we're starting to make a decision of doing a vote, and just let's remind ourselves, this is why we exist. This is not just for our shareholders to make more money for them.
Yeah.
This is for our stakeholders at large.
Yeah.
That means our team. That means our customers. That means our societies, our communities. It means the environment.
Yeah.
Also these things as well. And so overall, is a great framework for figuring out where we were, but what we needed to do to be better.
Well, I think you've knocked the nail on the head there. It's quite easy, and I do it all the time. I get inspired by reading something or I hear something. Oh, that's a nice idea. I'd like to do that. I'd like to be seen to be doing that for the team, or try it in bits and pieces. But keeping the momentum, or keeping it at the top of the agenda each time that you sit down as a management team to make a decision. As you say, if you've got the writing on the wall, is this good for the economy, the planet, communities? Should we be doing it? It's a very different way of doing it, isn't it?
Well, I anchors it all back, and it gives you. I kind of think you need this sort of guiding principles, or whatever you want to call them, and these type of things. And those and for me, that's how culture is built. You need to have, even if it's an unwritten set of rules as to why you exist, why you're here, why you're working together as a team, why you're doing the stuff that you do. And I think that's really important. Yeah. I mean, you could get it up on the wall there, Stu. I mean, that's a big.
Yeah. I hate stuff on the walls. I don't know why I said that.
I think
tattoo.
Yeah. Just bring it out every time.
I guess that to be driving a business forward in the way that you are, in the sense of with the creativity around what the product is and the passion, the due diligence to do it properly, to build a team, but having the foresight to do things differently and disrupting the markets, and also do it for with encouragement from Alice, I'm sure, do it in a way that's better for the planet. How have you structured, even from day one, the people around you and the influences to keep you on that track?
Yeah.
Or is it more an individual thing? I'm just,
No, it's not. I think, I have I feel really proud to have a strong group of friends, which of course you are an important one. Cheers to that. I think it's really important because you do get a choice as to who you have around you and who you listen to as well. Yeah. And I've one of the things. It's interesting actually because as a team leader, a business leader, I put a lot of focus and effort into making sure that the structure of the company and the training and development plans and the one-to-ones, the review processes for all the teams. So we'll listen to them, how they're feeling about the business, what do they need to get to the next level. Yeah. If they've got any ideas that want to put forward and supporting them in their career development. But then it's very easy to forget about yourself. And when you're at the top of the chain, you've got no one doing that for you necessarily. Yeah. And I think we've got a good board of directors, and not all companies have that, and not all companies need that necessarily. Yeah. And that can be one way of working it. But personally, I really enjoy spending time and bouncing ideas and just having time with people that I like and respect. Mm-hmm. You're running a business, you know what it feels like to run and manage a team. Yeah. I was having a chat with Tom Whitley last night, about some of the challenges.
Our next guest, hopefully.
Yeah. It'll be a good one. Yeah. Loves to talk. About some of the epic challenges and some of the there's some massive highs and lows in there. And I think you need the people around you to help almost kind of normalize that or remind you kind of why you're there. And I think that's super important. And that can come from family. Some people have got super tight-knit families. I've got a great family. We are distributed, so we only see each other every so often. So the people I speak to day to day are both the team and my kind of friendship network. So in terms of the team around me, I'm really lucky. I think that we started off the business around a table, or we start to get more senior people in, which is good, that moves us forward. But from day one, you have to have not just the people, but the right relationship to make it work.
Yeah, because obviously for us, it's two things really. I'm lucky because there's two of us, the problem shared and problem halved and all the rest of it. So from day one, there's that comfort blanket, probably from both myself and Garen, of each other. But in the early days, it was a lot easier. I was talking to the team today about this, actually. I find it harder now to keep that momentum with the inspiration, the people around us, as family man, business busy. Go back 5 years, it was a lot easier to have this more dynamic network and meeting people and bits and pieces. The business gets bigger, you get busier, you get bogged down, you get tired. It's not less time to go and network and meet people and all the rest of it. So it's like, how would you keep that kind of spark, isn't it? It's difficult, isn't it, to keep the inspiration going?
It's really hard. Yeah, I think it's super hard. I mean, I agree with you completely. Like your time gets massively sort of short, and you've got to choose what to let go because you can't do everything, can you? I think the first thing that's really important is looking after yourself. You know,
This is my next 12 months. I've kind of awoken and said the last 10 years of my life's been dedicated in a way that I've completely and utterly forgotten about myself.
Yes, and you just focus on the business. That's the all-encompassing, trying to move it to the next stage. And now, that's good. So the next 10 years is going to be
me.
Very good.
Well, hopefully, a balance, I think, is
a healthy.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. What does that mean? Adventures, challenges.
Yeah, all of that, all of the above.
The diet.
Indeed.
Sort of, lifestyle.
Kind of get back to being able to, I want to be, I've always loved that mountain biking, the surfing, the hiking, the climbing, the snowboarding. If it's an adventure and someone invites me, still need to go splitboarding. It's still a dream. I want to come and do it.
You got to do it.
But, the last 5 years have been bogged down with work and all the rest of it. To keep the energy to invest in yourself, to be able to still do those things you love to do, it gets harder and harder. It does for me anyway, not for everyone. So I've always been in awe of the energy that you've had to keep going with the business, keep, up with Alice.
Yeah.
no easy feat. And also keep the, just be who you are really. So it's, maybe a lot of people are looking thinking, how is he doing it?
Maybe there's a bit missing. I think there's a screw loose. I don't know. I think part of it's circumstance and having that. It's not like a fuck it attitude. That's not necessarily the point. It's not all. But I kind of think like, where would you rather be? Where would you? Would you rather be doing this or? Again, when I was working at Rolls-Royce, it was in an industrial estate in Warrington, and I don't know if you've. I don't know if you've done that drive along the M56 many times.
Yep.
It's quite a depressing thing to have to do that every morning, sitting in traffic and the rest of it. You think about where else you could be, what else you could be doing.
Yeah.
But I do think riding more often. I haven't done as much this summer as I would like to do. I've got 2 young kids, one's 2, one's 6, and that's a really hard thing. I want to be present for them. I want to be a good dad. I feel like I'm really lucky at the moment because I ride them to school in the morning. I take them to school in the morning on a bike.
Yeah.
Wife picks them up. I'm still back in time for bedtime, if not sort of dinner before. And that's a really lucky thing. Not everyone can do that, and I'm fully aware of that. I value that immensely. The thing that comes back from that is that I have less time to get out there and do stuff. And interestingly, I still look at people who I am inspired by and motivated by. Julia Hobson is one of our ambassadors. She's a Juliana rider. And I just look at her stuff, and she's a guide. She does lots of stuff, and she's into winter. And I like Instagram for making me jealous of the fact that they're doing something. I think that's part of it. I wish I was out there doing that. And I think it's part of it. The thing that I do want to do similar to you, and it's in my head at the moment. I try to book a big unsupported gravel ride from A to. Are you speaking to Rob about something, weren't you?
Yes, yeah. I was talking about the gravel foil stuff, and like I've started doing it with Howie. So he's 8.
That's amazing.
He's at a point where I need to make sure I'm fit enough to keep up with him in about 2 years' time. But it's kind of slowing down a little bit and understanding what adventures we can do together. That still, he's obviously loving every second of it, but we both need to benefit from it and kind of explore. So bike packing has become this new little thing we're learning together.
That's amazing.
It's pack the trailer up, it's slowing down. And I just, it's the reason we all like cycling, isn't it? Yeah, you can go a million miles an hour as fast as you can somewhere, but the ability to slow down, like on our Amberhagen trip, that's 13 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Being able to slow down and just take in the world and chat with your son while cycling through the forests of Wales or Scotland is an incredibly lucky thing. And
I love seeing that stuff come through. It's very heartwarming, and you kind of see the smile on Howie's face. He's loving it, isn't he? And
I'm not pulling all this stuff with the trailer.
With the trailer, you need a battery, mate.
Yeah, no, tell me about it. I'm saving up for a battery. Put it that way.
Yeah. It's the next thing I think for me. Like, there's talking like being short with time. I've had a chat with a few people of late. A lot of people that live not far from where we live in Austria, but the young people, and they choose to have generally one of the lighter weight full sus mountain bikes. This is not like a city tourer, because if they've got 40, 50 minutes at lunchtime, They can do a climb, a descent that would normally take them, say, 2 hours if you were not powered. So that gets more out of your time. You've got a massive smile on your face when you come back for your 2 o'clock call or whatever. And for me, that's, I think, it's probably about making the right choices to make the most out of your time. And I'm not in a perfect position with that at all at the moment. But I think as long as we're moving in that direction.
So just so everyone's aware at home, you lived in Chester for like 8 years, maybe, was it?
Yeah, something. I was living in Chester when I worked for Rolls-Royce, and that's where I started the business. Hence the reason the HQ is here. And
one moment you woke up and decided to.
Well, I mean, so obviously there was this underlying thing about wanting to build a business that was not just a UK focused business. So that was always at the back of my mind. And Brexit was like a sod it moment. That was like, I mean, I've done amazing things for the country, hasn't it? 300 million back to NHS. Let's overlook that. But that was a bit of a trigger for doing it, because we used to be able to sell from the UK into the whole of Europe. Insurance as a financially regulated company. That Brexit put an end to that. So that set a ticking time bomb.
I remember it was quick, wasn't it? It was a very kind of, well, actually, we need to move on this.
Let's do it. So the next big sort of block, the next area we were looking at was Germany, Austria, massive economy, loads of people riding bikes, good average bike value. And then so when Albie, our first born, our son was 3 months old, Alice and I borrowed a motorhome from a chap called Paul Emington. He does grind Euro and other stuff. And we came down through the Alps. And with a view to, it was in my mind actually, looking as to where to live. I'm not sure Alice was necessarily knew about this at the time, but that's another story. And we kind of came through Switzerland, the various different places, and we kind of landed in Innsbruck. And Innsbruck is quite unique in a place that there's not many places that have the mountains on your doorstep, and I'm talking like 500 meter, 7,500, 8,000 foot mountains on your doorstep. University, lots of like young talent that want to be there. Airport, good transport links. It's a city, so it's not overly. It's not too seasonal. You get more people in winter, more people in summer, but it's not like this. There's this like vacuum when it's in between season. And I just went riding, and I got chatting to a few people on the mountain bike and stuff when we were just there for a few days, and it had an interesting vibe to it. So so now I live in Innsbruck. The office, our company's registered in Munich, is in Munich, the GmbH license there. But our HQ, our European HQ, is in Innsbruck, which is somewhere you need to visit very soon.
Yes, I keep saying I will come. I would need to bring the camper van and just do the whole tour. Is the plan at some point?
Do it.
But you'd be glad to know my new passport arrived this morning. So
it's a dark one though, isn't it?
Yes.
Dark day when you get a dark passport.
It isn't. Oh yeah. Oh well.
It's all right. It's all right.
So yeah, what's the plan with like Innsbruck? It was a short-term thing, but now things are really developing over there, and Europe's becoming a major part of the business.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would not do Europe in the same way I did it first time. Like, we didn't have a huge amount of budget, and I think if I'd really stopped and thought about it, maybe we wouldn't have done it. I don't know, but it was kind of there was an opportunity there. Brexit was coming up, and the first couple of years were hard. You move to a new place, having to recruit people, set up another office, and I think. So we one of which is we didn't really have the budget to recruit the people who knew the market to do it well. But also I made a mistake in sort of setting up a separate team and not really using the learning from the rest of the team that was there to inform what we should be doing. And we've completely changed that now. Everyone in the kind of Innsbruck team sits within the team that is a global team. So you've got kind of a territory focus, but also like a skill sort of focus, be that marketing or partnerships or customer experience. So we share knowledge, we share understanding, and that's and this past 12 months has been like a leap forward. We've managed to see it work, because it's when you've got investors that are having to put money in to grow the business in Europe, and it's not quite getting to where we got to in the early days in the UK. You've really got to have a solid reasoning for why. And this year's the year that it's been a pivotal one for us. So, but I say that you live and you learn.
Yeah, of course. There's a moment where you had to do it, so you did do it, and then obviously you learn from there, don't you? Yeah,
absolutely. And you can't really go back. You can't really sort of. I say you can't go back. We've done it now. We've done the hard yards, and particularly coming up to like another sort of funding round. A lot of companies will say we're going to do Europe. But it's easy to say stuff. It's very hard to do stuff. That's part of.
So I remember, like, actually, let's just go back a little bit, because I think we've skipped the whole pivot moment. So there was a bit where you built the platform. In all intents and purposes, it worked, but it was hugely complex, and there was flaws, but you still believed in it for a moment. But then there was a conversation with Hiscox Insurance came along, who very quickly arose to be more of an opportunity that you decided to explore very rapidly. I remember within 6 weeks, I think it was, wasn't it? Pretty much to
committed to it.
design a product.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, the basics of it. Like insurance was on the business plan from day one, but it was down there as a sort of sub part to say, well, we know bikes better than an insurance company. They wear suits and they do home insurance, so we can add something to their service. We can save them money. We can improve their experience. So that was on there from day one, and then we kind of got the part of the way through the project. We built this platform that we're really proud of, at the time.
Yeah.
And it's worth touching on is that you did an amazing video for us in the Camp and Furnace in Liverpool. It was amazing. The issue with that, the issue was the actual platform didn't work as well as the video suggested it would. So
yeah,
it's a learning for the future. Make sure it's the other way around, or at least on a par.
Yeah.
So really proud of it, but it just wasn't working financially. And there's only so many times you can go back to investors to say we need some more money. And I didn't really see that sort of, the kind of pathway. I didn't see us getting to where we wanted to get to. So through a friend called Liam Green, actually, who I used to ride with, friends of Mike and Kate and all a group of friends, they introduced me to a chap called Lee Turner at Hiscox, and we met at a service station on the M56, and I pitched him what I thought we could provide to Hiscox.
Yeah.
But at the time, he pitched kind of back to say, well, why don't you build an insurance policy? And it really wasn't anything I'd ever imagined that we'd even consider. Yeah. But he just said, think about it. So that was the kind of trigger point to go away and look at what was in the market.
Yeah.
Do the research in the forums, social media. It's quite easy to find that sort of information. What are the pain points that people are experiencing? Yeah. And at the time, the existing players were massive insurance companies just doing cycling as a small part. The technology was awful. The user experience was awful. The worst was 20 questions just to get a quote.
Yeah.
Over 5 pages just to get a quote. So it was like the gap is massive here. And then if you look at it from a commercial or financial standpoint, well, it's really a subscription model because insurance is based on, or successful businesses are based on retention. So you sell a policy on day one, and if you do well, and then that customer will renew for the second year and the next year and the next year. Yep. So if you've got this and then you've got this building back book of customers, retained customers. So if you're then selling more new policies each year, you kind of hit this sort of exponential curve, it's kind of hockey stick sort of thing. So it really made sense from a standpoint. So we're kind of intrigued with that. But I then had to take it back, and we were in this quite cool space, in this like loft space in the middle of Chester, if you remember.
Yeah.
Really fucking hot.
I remember banging my head several times on the beam.
Yeah. And this cool sort of loft space, and like a nice sort of fairly tightly knit team. And to go back and tell them we're going to go into insurance, that was not what anyone signed up to do at all.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of skepticism from them as well as myself in thinking about it. But when we talked around it, and you helped us out in the initial sort of design, the website design, and so forth. It was
pretty much it literally was back of Fag Packet website design, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was within days we kind of spun something around to try and move quickly,
figure out how it worked. And we built the original platform. I'm going to get the timing right. I'm going to say it's 8 or 10 weeks or something like that. George built the platform. And then we're selling policies. And then because we had this sort of database of customers, we knew the bike sector. We went to the Rafa Tempest Festival at the Tour de France in September.
Yep.
And there, as has been a big part of the business ever since, we sold coffee. And if you're going to give us an email and ask some questions about insurance, you got coffee for either for free or 50p, whatever it was. It was something like that. And
you dragged me into hold an iPad and collect data.
It was a good weekend. We got to ride some nice bikes.
It was good. Yeah, we saw the Tour de France whiz past.
Yeah,
we heard it whiz past. Seeing it on a big screen, it's like
okay. wasn't part of the experience.
Yeah,
but it was. But then we had 2,000 email signatures at the end of that.
Yeah.
And then we went to I think it was with Bianchi. We went to the because we knew them through the sort of previous stuff. Griff and Co. Bianchi. We went to the cycle show in 2014. 26th of September. We switched the taps on, and we were selling policies from day one. And I think because of how we sort of put across that felt very different to riders, we spoke in a way that was very different to how insurance companies spoke. It's a different market now. There's a lot more players in the market. It's a lot more competitive. But it was quite early days, and it was different. It was new.
Because you had to, even from day one, you said you were selling them quite quickly, but the competitors came quite quick and fast, didn't they, as well? So you had to keep moving and keep developing.
It was amazing how quick, even in terms of like website design, in terms of how things looked and felt, the wording, you can't copyright that stuff. And like day to day, people copy other people's logos and styles and whatever. But it happened really quickly. But then I think the nice thing about starting from that place is that you're not really looking at sort of them per se. You just got your eyes in front of you. You're just going for it and figuring out what you can do and ways in which to grow the business. And it didn't. early on we're selling a lot of direct policies, and we've part of the business is growing around our partnerships with really trusted companies. We had like British Cycling was the biggest one for me, really. Like I had the first conversations 3-4 years before actually winning that partnership.
Yep.
But that's and this is after 2012 where, Olympics, Wiggins, track team just absolutely smashing it. And so to remind me, the British Cycling was this sort of like this held up as this massive thing. And but when you go into the reason I think we managed to win it is that one, we showed around over a long period of time. We were doing the right things in the bike industry. Yeah. Most people that work in British Cycling are cyclists. They're there because they want to improve their sport. They want to improve cycling as a means of recreation, as transport, get kids onto bikes. They're really passionate about what they do. Yeah. And partnerships are really about relationships. Yeah. So we got it. We got them, they got us. And we really that partnership is about supporting British Cycling, what they do, improving their membership, enabling them to provide more services that help protect riders, and it's a symbiotic relationship. It's a beautiful one. And that's the one I'm most proud of, that really it was a stepping stone for future.
I guess it doesn't matter how, you're walking around in your flannel shirt, being a rider, talking rider language, but there was always this Hiscox support. Everyone was saying, oh, it's Hiscox.
It's a big brand, and that was, whether you call it serendipity, luck, fate, I don't really care. Yeah, that's been a really big part of it, especially the early years. Still a really great partner for us now. But you get trust when people recognise a badge. And at the time, Hiscox was spending really heavily, and they still do. Very strong brand, spending heavily in like train stations, so people recognise the brand.
Yeah. Well, they had a TV commercial, didn't they, across ITV for probably, was it 2015, I think?
Yeah, with that on the home, sort of 3D sort of stuff. So they were quite a prominent brand, and they were fantastic. And they've been an amazing partner since. They gave us the opportunity to question every last part of the policy.
Yes.
There's even things as simple as we used to start off with giving away 30 days free, 30 days worldwide insurance. Yeah. The question to them was, well, when someone makes a claim when they've been away from the home or they've been traveling somewhere, do you check how many days they've been away from the house? And they never do. They just wasn't part of the process. Very few riders, save the ones that go around the world, ride for 365 days a year. So why not limit people? Why make it feel like it is limiting to them to buy it? So we just gave that away for free, no extra charge for doing it. Yeah. And that's what we're always interested in doing, giving the best value to the rider for fair price.
Yeah, great. So you've pivoted. You've had a great partner doing it. The team bought into it. I guess they bought into it because the values were the same regardless, weren't they? In terms of, I imagine that if you were to sell a weight weenie saddle, the way that you go about it and the team would follow you and do it as you're doing now anyway.
It was still day to day, the interesting thing is day to day, most of the team are speaking to riders, putting them back on bikes, speaking to retailers, buying bikes, getting bikes repaired, working with bike publishers, bike brands, British Cycling, Brompton, all these cool. And that's what we do. I can justify reading a bike magazine or something, or going for a ride. It's part of work.
Yeah.
Just about an hour ago, I scheduled a bike ride with a guy in Switzerland because it's, we need to have a chat. So let's go and have a ride, Nice. And we're still, although insurance is the product that we provide, and we're really proud to protect, to aim to protect the world's riders, day to day, it's biking, and we love it. Yeah.
Good. I think one of the moments where there's a few moments where I kind of sniggered to myself a little bit, where the insurance part of the business was thriving, it was growing. It's a different approach to business, isn't it, in terms of the way that works and how the way the value works, and you're still heavily invested in new territories, new teams, and it's still been a very stressful time all the way along. But I remember time after time it's like, oh yeah, we're a tech startup. It's like, Dave, that ship has sailed. So how have you navigated from the excitement of being a young tech startup, which gives you the excuse maybe to be like, yeah, we'll go here very quick, we'll sprint here, then oh no, we'll sprint there, and it's like all the rest of it, to being a bit more kind of, your insure tech business, it's established, you pan-European, you're growing, it's different. You're growing up now, Dave.
It's more grown up, but I'd like to say, I guess there's always like sort of thing about not necessarily becoming a part of the establishment too much. Or I think the way in which the insurance the reason that I think I still have those issues in saying I work in the insurance business to a certain degree is because of the perception of how insurance companies act. In the way, and through dishonesty or misinformation, or like this sort of dual pricing thing. We've got to shop around. Why did refusing claims for just any cost trying to wiggle out, and that's a big issue. So I think I've got a thing probably about associating too closely to that, but it is ultimately part of what we do, and that's part of something I'm proud of. How long are you allowed to be in the startup phase? What's the limit?
Yeah, I don't know actually. I think I might have actually Googled it once, so I could challenge you on it. It's like, I think I don't know.
It's not set, is it? It could be 1 year, it could be 5 years. But I guess we're stable as a company, and that's a really important part of where we are. And I guess I probably can we be a Scaleup? Is that all right?
Okay.
That still gives it a little bit of free room to sort of room. I guess when you call yourself a startup, there is that sort of, it's a bit of excitement. We're kind of young and we're doing this sort of stuff. And that's a nice thing. And the world's, the world's your, I keep saying lobster, the world's your oyster. Whatever, you can get out there and do what you want and probably make more mistakes, like you said.
But I think it's always difficult to, as recruitment, as you say, like people management is like a significant part of your business or your day to day. When you recruit businesses now, when you recruit people and talent now in the UK or in Innsbruck, what they're expecting from your business is very different from what people in year 2 expect to give to a startup, isn't it? Yeah. So like, I think it's very hard still for me. It's like, well, I bled for this company. You need to. You need to. Yeah. But
the expectations, I think, of people coming in are very different, aren't they? We've had to do things like career pathways. Mm-hmm. When you're 4 or 5 or 6, I can't remember how many people sat around a table, you ain't got career pathways.
No.
You don't think about paternity benefits. You don't think about all these sort of different things that are really important to people, especially if you're going to a business where you're looking at, okay, I'm going to be there for 5 or 10 years or maybe longer. Lifetime companies, of course, are probably a thing of the past, not necessarily. Yeah. And you kind of have to do that. And again, perhaps that's the point at which you stop being a startup, is then you need to grow up a bit and,
And I guess that, what I'm trying to get at is that what value do you see from the team once you kind of understand that difference and actually kind of actively promote and work with it rather than like, no, we're a startup. This is the way it's done.
I guess, like as mentioned before, we started doing this 2025 planning. I think that's probably part of it. You're not just doing day to day. And I think then you can give the responsibility to other people to think about the longer term.
Yeah.
And also, like, people have now got teams. It wasn't just me and I've got 4 people around me. We were just a team. We were just people doing stuff. Yeah. I guess even like, Keith, our head of CX, has got a team of whatever, 8, 9, 10 people. That's going to be growing massively in the next sort of 3 years. Yeah. And you got to pass on that responsibility to them to think about the long term, not just about sort of yourself. And I guess that's probably part of it. Yeah. Is not just dealing with the now, the here, the sort of let's do it and get stuck in. It's probably about thinking about the longer term game. Yeah.
So like what I wanted to try and do is just take away a few kind of key moments or key resources or key, ways of approaching things, thought processes, I guess, that helped you get to where you are now. If you were going to do it all again, the cheesy question is what would you make sure you remember to take back with you?
I guess the first thing is probably
investors.
No. I mean, some companies don't need investment, do they? It's just that the business I chose needed that. I mean, the business is really made up of people, and the kind of and the culture of those people, I think, always is instigated by the person or people who founded the business, and I think that's a really important thing. So you need to, but I think choosing the people who you're going to have around you is so important, and not everyone has the time or the flexibility or the budget to do the Google 20 interview stuff, and it's really hard to find good people sometimes. I'm lucky that Gareth James, chap who used to be working at Money Supermarket, who was in the office next to me, helped me find George, actually, he came to the interview. It was actually a recruiter that found a job. It's really hard to find the right sort of people, and I think you kind of have to go with your gut instinct with it. And for me, it's definitely not about sort of qualifications necessarily. It's more about attitude and how you get on with it. There's got to be a personal connection there. But it's not as though you don't need everyone to be your friend at all. That's not what it's about. I'm not saying, obviously, I do care for everyone within the business at the moment, but
which is easier when it's bigger, isn't it? If there's 4 around a table, then
you kind of got to like people. But I think as long as you care for people in the way that you might want to see them do right, do well, I think that's really important. But I think it's definitely about attitude and how someone approaches something rather than necessarily have they got a badge or have they got something behind it. But also something's got to click there personally, especially early on, because you're going to work deep together. You're going to work long hours. George slept in his van many times. He's really put in the hard yards. He's been with us 10 years as well now. We need to sort something out for that.
That's a big moment, that, isn't it? He's seen a lot, hasn't he?
He's seen an awful lot. He's done good. So people, I think, would be the first one, and I think just having like you have to articulate to even the first person or even yourself on board as to what you're probably trying to achieve. What's your goal? What's your aim? What's your kind of mission? And I think having that clarity in your head and making sure checking you're in for it first is a super important one. Yeah, because you need to have the energy to continue to do it when the shit's hit the fan, things are going wrong. You don't have to be happy clappy all the time. That's not the point. Yeah. It's just having sort of the motivation to keep it going, keep it moving forward, to keep it happy. Because if you don't, other people aren't. That's not the point. But if you got those two things, I think if you got that right and the motivation, you understand why you're doing it, the reasons you're treating people well. For me, that's where culture starts. Yeah, that's where the culture sort of begins, and I think that is really how a business has got to evolve, got to build. Yeah. The other thing, I've had a chat with a few businesses before, is just be really not harsh on yourself, but realistic about business sort of models. There was someone that was at the Riverside Innovation Centre that I spoke to a bit ago, and really sort of analysed that they were trying to build out this sort of directory for sort of green companies. But when you figured out how long they had to spend with some to sign them up on board to do this, to get them on board, and then what we're going to make out of it, the economies just didn't work out. I think you just need to be realistic about it. I think if I've been realistic about the comparison business and making that about money, then would I have done it differently? But perhaps not, because there was still a belief. I didn't really care about the money to start with. I just wanted to build it.
Well, I think you had different reasons to why you started as well. Yeah. But because I'm always probably a little too pragmatic at times. Someone tells me, great idea. Yeah, that's fantastic. But have you thought this, and this, and this, and this, and this? And the list is endless.
You can see it draining out of them. Yeah.
And it's like, but that's not the reason I'm sort of trying to talk like that. It's just, you've got to be, see the wider picture. You can't be rose tinted. It's amazing, like easy.
There is a balance, isn't there, with this, especially when you don't want everyone to make the same mistakes as you, but you don't want to quash people's enthusiasm as well, isn't there? There's a balance. And I've made a load of mistakes with that. I know other people in the business that have made when they're managing other people. Yeah. So, but it's how you balance that, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. So what's next then? I guess that question's more, you touched on the business, the vision, the growth, but one of the things we've talked about over the years as well is, the key hires you've had to try and take the weight and the stress off you to be able to get that balance and have the headspace to make sure you're taking the business in the right direction. So, what does the next 2 years look like for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not really a surprise that spending more on hiring good people with experience moves the business forward. I mean, it's fairly...
But it's still the hardest thing to do, isn't it?
And if you've got very little budget, you can't do it. You can't necessarily do that. You can't expect people to work for a dime who could do something else. But there's been two particular hires. One's our CFO, Louise. And I am not... finance has never been my forte per se. And we've had a great sort of finance team that worked before she joined. But she's moved things forward leaps and bounds. She worked for startups and the rest of it. And it's just then that's me passing that whole part of the business on. Because when you start, you do everything.
Yes.
Because there's no one else to do it. Yeah. You take people on board and they take on little parts of the business, but some parts you will generally always keep in the early years, won't they? And so finance, and we've got Gary Bright on board as a chief operating officer. He was an interesting one because he came from Hiscox, actually, a big insurance company. He was a director with Bikmo as part of an investment that they put in. Yep. But he's really interesting that he's actually brought he's brought experience of the insurance world with none of the sort of encumbrances, none of the weight of it, and he's quite light and just makes stuff happen. That's really important. So those two hires have made me realize that actually, for me to sort of start to think about the future of the business, because I'm in this for the long term. This is not like a 2 years and cash out sort of business.
Why is that?
Why? Well, it's not really why I set the business up. It's not why it exists, and it's going to take a long time to build a business that has. Well, you want to build a business that has a dent within the sector that you love, cycling. That's what I started off with. But also, like, I think the business is my way of having an impact on the world in the right sort of way. A B Corp is a marker for how we sort of measure where we sit to a certain degree. But the bigger our business is, the more of a voice we can have. And we touched on the Yvonne Chouinard, the Patagonia thing before. Like, I mean, that's been covered worldwide by all the major titles because it's really important of a company doing something different in a different sort of way. And I'm not saying I'm at that level at all, but I'm definitely not a Greta. I'm not an individual who will sit on a thing and motivate thousands of people. So how can I have an impact individually? And for me, that is through growing the right business in the right way with the right culture and inspiring the team to get on board with this vision of what we could achieve together. Not just for me. That's not the point. It's not about that that's kind of why I think that's my motivation. That's the kind of why for me, and that's a really important thing. And there will be no doubt some financial benefit coming out of it as well. And there's a decision to be made what to do with that. Being in a fortunate position to have options at some point in the future, but I don't see that coming from a long time.
No, it's
down
like
the road.
It might have seemed like a tricky question, but what you just said was the most powerful thing we've heard at the session. It's like that strong why to have a platform for a voice. You've expended an extreme amount of energy to get to this point. Yes, it's going to take energy to continue going, but hopefully you got the team around you to take, right, let's sit back, let's really work out where we take the business and why we take the business there and how we can then impact.
How great impact. We did. It was really interesting. We had a session in Innsbruck and I brought the leadership team over. And we were in a hut called the Umbrugla Arm, and it's this most beautifully architectured.
Stunning, wasn't it?
It was a phenomenal one. We just had this building on one side, and it was really the start of our 2025 strategy. And the nice thing about that was it kind of freed everyone up a bit. We're in the mountains, and you're not in this sort of like clinical environment. And I ran a number of exercises where I kind of wrote a number of stories in a sort of BBC sort of way. I got people to think about the future, writing a news story as to how people are writing about Bikmo in the future. And there's a 2023, 2025 and 2030 objectives.
We do that with like branding exercises. Write a headline for your business. What do you want people to talk to you about? It's a great. Also the pre-mortem, what we did do that is to write a bad headline about yourself, because it helps you realize or think about what could go wrong and what might happen in the wrong way. And it was a really interesting exercise. And part of the reason for it was that the 2025 was more practical. This is in near term. This is what we can think about now as to what we're going to achieve. We want to grow the business, protect the world's riders, achieve our mission, and do some great stuff. 2030 was much more free. It was really interesting as to what we might achieve as a business, and a lot of it was around the impact that we're going to have together as a team and an organization to do amazing things in the bike and adventure sports world. And it's fascinating that actually, if the further you look ahead, the freer you can be with those aspirations.
It opens your mind a bit. So I guess bringing that back to like the question before, like the next 2 years for me is we've got some amazing team members. There's a few areas, probably 2 areas or 3 areas in the business. I just need a bit more to bring in the right people to sit at that sort of level, to run that part of the business that I can sort of then pass it on. That would just give me a bit more freedom to then start to think about the future. And of course, ride bikes a bit more, because for me, that it is my meditation. I get cranky as hell if I do not. Alice will say this a lot. It's a bit like having a collie. I get cranky. It's a way I process stuff in my mind, as well as keeping physical health, mental health, and all the rest of it is really important to me. So hoping to allow a bit more time after whatever 10, 15 years of graft to look forward a bit. So
amazing, good. Well, I think we've covered a huge amount, really, haven't we? I guess
it's a lot.
From trials and tribulations from the start to where you are now and aspirations, the B Corp stuff. It's a phenomenal story, and I'm always jealous about how you can keep ploughing on with so much energy, I must admit. But it's been a pleasure to watch you kind of and be a part of a bit of it as well.
Yeah, a big part of it.
And so thank you for coming in. I think that it was a great conversation. Hopefully
Yeah.
a lot of people can take some advice, and obviously we can follow up with any other bits and pieces to talk about.
That sounds good. Thank you for inviting me. It's awesome to see the studio, and just we don't speak enough anyway, do we? So
No. Well, Innsbruck's a long way away, Dave.
well, book your split boarded trip.
I know.
and
Well,
then
the last trip we had to come home early, didn't we? We were
Yeah.
in the airport.
Yeah.
Me and Karen were sat in the airport in where are we? Like we're in France.
Yeah, about to come over.
No, we're in the train station in Morzine, about to get the train to you guys.
Yeah.
And then Karen got a call from a client. I need something doing very urgently. So with gritted teeth, we came home.
Yeah.
That's how dedicated we are to our clients. Yeah.
Oh, that's an important thing. But next time, switch off your phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, out the window. Cheers, Dave.
All right.
Speak soon.
Speak soon.
I hope you're enjoying the conversations we're having on these podcasts. Don't forget you can join in the conversation on the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Please check out the channel for more, and I hope to see you soon.